so what I have here is a raw caramel slice that is unbelievable. So it's all nuts and seeds. So we've got a base that's all nuts and seeds. We've got the caramel part, which we'll talk about, which is made of tahini and dates and a couple other things. And then this chocolate, it's a raw chocolate. And what's amazing about this caramel slice is the textures. So you've got this kind of crunchy base that's a nut and seed base. You've got this really creamy center. And then you've got this chocolate topping that's really nice, like a hard, crunchy chocolate topping. Really divine mixture of flavors and taste sensations. It's really spectacular. So, Brooke and Sally, so how do we make this? You got to tell me. The first question I have about these is, how do you get that caramel taste to it, that creamy caramel taste?
So the caramel flavour is a mixture between the medjool dates,
Yeah.
the tahini, and a little bit of coconut palm sugar that's in there.
Okay.
That combination is what gives you the caramel flavour.
Okay, so what actually is in that caramel creamy part? Is it just those three things, or what else is in there?
We've got soaked cashews, so that gives the real creaminess to it. We've had them soaking overnight, and then they're whizzed in with the tahini and the coconut sugar and the dates. And yeah, it just all whizzed together with those cashews. It creates a beautiful creamy texture.
It is absolutely delicious. And the chocolate on the top, it sort of reminds me of the chocolate, you know, that you get with ice creams, the dip.
Yeah, that goes hard.
You know, that
Yeah.
goes hard.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you make that chocolate get that kind of like crunchy, hard layer on the top?
It's really
Really
simple.
easy,
Yeah,
yeah.
really simple. It's just the three ingredients and you just whisk them together.
Yeah.
It goes smooth, and then because the actual caramel is set and gone hard, cold, you just pour the chocolate sauce on it, and automatically, like you said, goes hard.
It's really, really
It
nice.
becomes nice and smooth.
So let's just talk about specifically, how do we make something like this?
So to make any of these raw cakes, you just need either a food processor or a blender. We use a Thermomix, but you can definitely use any kind of blender or food processor. And we start off with the base, which is 1 cup of almonds, which you grind up firstly until they form like an almond meal. So it's finely ground up. And then you add in the 2 medjool dates. And they're the really chewy, gooey, yummy dates.
Right, so the important thing with the medjool dates is that they're not the dried dates.
No.
And the thing that's important about that, the way you've explained it to me, is that the medjool dates, number one, they've got more of a texture and a flavor, and they're easier to combine with the other ingredients. And also, from a nutritional standpoint, they're not as high in sugar as dried dates, which I think is really good. So you're using medjool dates, not dried dates.
They also really help to bind the base together, so you're not needing as much liquid or it really acts as a binder for the crust.
Right.
So it's just 2 tablespoons of almond butter, 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, and 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. Now, not always do you need the coconut oil. If you've got really gooey medjool dates, then you may only need 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, but it helps it bind together, so it's nice and tacky when you're touching it to press down into the base.
Okay.
So then you just grab a lined cake tin, or you grab yourself some baking paper, and you press that down into the cake tin, and you empty the contents from your food processor, it'll look like a crummy kind of texture. Pour that into the bottom of the tin and press it down really well with your fingers. It's just important to make sure that it's well covered so that when we put the filling on it, it won't leak through the bottom.
Sure.
And then you pop it into the freezer while you're making the filling, and it'll just harden up a bit in there while...
How long do you leave it in the freezer for?
As long as it takes you to make the filling.
Okay.
So 5-10 minutes, yeah.
Okay. And so how do you make the filling?
Okay, so to make the filling, it's overnight or for a good few hours. We like to do it overnight. We soak our cashews just to ferment them and also to make them blend much easier.
Okay,
as well.
so the important point here is before you even start this, if you know the next day you're going to make a caramel slice, you're going to soak some cashews overnight.
Yes.
And how many cashews?
It's 1.5 cups.
1.5
of
cup. So 1.5 cups of cashews we're soaking overnight
Yep.
in water.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't think that far ahead and you realise you've got people coming over that night, you can do it for a few hours. It will still work, it will still blend up, it just won't blend as easy, and obviously won't have the health benefits as well.
Okay.
So then it's just 2 medjool dates, either a quarter of a cup or a third of a cup of coconut palm sugar.
Depending on how sweet we want it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things I just want to talk about and mention when it comes to these desserts is that as you get better and better at making these raw desserts, you may want to experiment with using less and less sweetener, depending on your taste. Like for me, these are too sweet because I'm not used to sweet foods. And over time, when you're eating really healthy foods, your taste buds start to change so you don't crave sweets as much. So with these recipes, you may want to try to back off the sweetener over time and see if it still works for you and your family.
And then we've got a tablespoon of unhulled tahini.
Yeah.
We've got half a cup of coconut cream and half a cup of coconut oil. So you just pop all of that into your blender or food processor and whiz it all together.
Now the coconut cream and the coconut oil, is it cold, it's cold pressed?
Yes, it is, yes.
Cold pressed, and where do you get the coconut cream, for example?
The coconut cream we get from a health food store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says specifically coconut cream?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And it's
Does it come
really,
in a can or a bottle? Or?
You can get them in both, but it's
Yeah.
really important that you use coconut cream, not the coconut milk.
Right.
Even with coconut milk, you can get coconut cream that sits on top of that can,
Yeah.
but it is watered down and generally has other additives and things.
Right. So it's going to specifically say coconut cream?
It
That's what
is,
we
yes.
want. Okay. All right. And then what do we do next?
So we whiz it all up in
Yeah.
your blender or food processor. You will find that you'll need to give it a good minute or so, and then you'll need to scrape down the sides.
Okay.
You may need to do that 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
If you're finding it's too hard to, or it's not whizzing well enough, you can add a little bit more coconut cream just to help it whiz along, depending on the the quality of your blender.
And when it's all said and done, you want it to be a nice creamy consistency?
Yes, it will look like caramel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then what do we do?
And then we just grab our base out of the freezer then, and that should have firmed up a little bit.
Yeah.
We pour the caramel on top and just with a spoon spread it out so it's nice and even, and then pop it back in the freezer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Then we've got the delicious chocolate layer. Now it's important with the chocolate layer that we let that caramel set for a good probably half an hour.
Okay, so basically, once we've made the base and once we've made the filling, we put it in the freezer for a good half an hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you'll know when it will have really firmed up
You want
to
it to be
touch
firm.
it. Yeah.
You want it to be kind of like this, which
Yeah.
is like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Then to make the chocolate sauce that goes on top, it's just a quarter of a cup of coconut oil. Depending on the climate that you're living in, if it's cold, you'll definitely need to pop this in a saucepan and really melt it down.
Okay.
So then you mix through 2 tablespoons of cacao powder and a tablespoon of coconut nectar.
Okay, so that's raw cacao.
It
So it's
is.
raw, unsweetened cacao,
Yes.
which you also get at the health food store, I guess.
Yes, you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, for people that aren't familiar, it's a form of chocolate. Basically, it's unsweetened. It's very high quality. It's very high in antioxidants. It's actually really good for you, and it's got all the chocolate taste. And then the coconut nectar. Also, where do you get the coconut nectar?
From a health food store as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
And how much coconut nectar?
Just 1 tablespoon, but like you said earlier, if you wanted a little bit sweeter, you could add an extra half a tablespoon, but 1 tablespoon gives it that nice, still got that nice bitter chocolate taste
Excellent.
on top, yeah.
Okay, and what do we do? We mix it all
So
together?
then we just mix that together with a whisk
Uh-huh.
until it looks exactly like chocolate sauce and the cacao powder's nice and dissolved, and you just drizzle it all on top and spread it out with a spoon nice and evenly.
And about how thick? I mean, I'm looking at it. It looks like what is that? A couple mils or something like that?
Yeah. And depending on the size tin you use as well,
Yeah.
we've used a square tin for
Okay.
this one.
So you drizzle it on, you make it nice and smooth.
Yeah. And then pop it back in the freezer.
For-
Another 2 hours for it all to set really well, and then it's just a matter of taking it out and slicing it up. A little tip that we have is it's nice to take it out of the freezer and let it sit for an hour or so before you go to slice it.
Okay.
It just cuts much easier.
All right, so I'm going to put it in the freezer for about 2 hours. Then I'm going to take it out
Yep.
and let it sit for an hour, and then I'm going to cut it. And then I'm
Perfect.
going to serve it.
Yeah.
So if I'm having this as a dessert for like a dinner party, say, once I start serving the meal, I'm going to take this out and just let it sit, and by the time that's done, I can cut it up and
Yeah.
have something really nice.
Yes.
Awesome. So how many servings do we get in this recipe?
Well, you want to use a cake tin that's about 15 centimetres or 6 inches by 6 inches, so a square one. We like to chop them up quite small, and we get about 30 servings. But you could, make them bigger and get about 15 to 20.
Okay, 15 to 20, 15, really basically 15 to 30 servings depending on how big you
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, I just want to say that these are a brilliant invention, and this is one of the nicest desserts that I've ever tasted, bar none. Regardless of whether it's, quote, real or raw, this is a fabulous, fabulous taste experience. So definitely try it at home. It's easy to make. I watched. I can tell you that I could do it myself, and if I can do it, I'm basically the lowest common denominator cook. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So definitely give it a try. Awesome. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.